Welcome, everybody, to a dual show. So I got Crystal Kyle and friends for you. I'm going to be interviewing, honestly, one of my idols, Tom Hartman. So that's going to be really fun. I'm super excited for that. But you're not just getting a Crystal Kyle and friends right now. You're also getting a mini secular talk show as well. You're also getting the Kyle Kulinski show as well. And the reason for that is I just did 2 live shows, one in New York City on Broadway at a place called the Town Hall. And then we also did a show in Boston. I think it was called the Wilbur Theater, the W Theater, something like that. And it was phenomenal. Thank you so much for everybody who came out. We had a blast, and I hope you guys had fun as well. I don't do live shows often, so whenever I do, I kind of soak up the experience. It's really cool, feeding off of the energy of the crowd. So yeah, it was fun all around. But because of that, I did miss an episode of the Kyle Kulinski show, so I want to go ahead and make up for that a little bit here for you guys. And also, there's some stories that I've just been chomping at the bit to dive into. So there's a bunch of stuff to get to. They're all either really, really interesting and important or fun. So let's start here with Alex Jones. So Alex Jones, of course, was involved in this fiasco, this carnival of an interview where he had on Kanye West and Nick Fuentes. And I think Alex is a little bit embarrassed about that interview because he wanted it to go a certain way, and it didn't go that way. I mean, he was throwing some softballs down the center of the plate at Kanye, teeing him up to be like, no, I'm not a Nazi. No, I don't love Hitler. I'm just an independent-minded free thinker who has heterodox thoughts or whatever. That's what Alex was expecting Kanye to say and do, and he didn't do that. I mean, to sum it up, as you guys know, he basically said, I love Hitler. I love Nazis. So my opponents are correct. My detractors are correct. And so he made Alex look a little silly. It's the first interview I think I've ever seen where Alex Jones speaks for not a majority of the time. And then also in retrospect, Alex learned more about Nick Fuentes, that he is sort of like a card-carrying Nazi and white supremacist and white nationalist. And Alex is, look, his lane is I'm the conspiracy guy. Like, that's his lane. His lane is I'm the conspiracy guy. And to the extent that you can, understand the core of his politics, I mean, it might be like libertarian-ish right-wing conspiracy theory. Like, that's probably the best descriptor I can give. So he's not an all-out Nazi. He's not, as extreme as somebody like Kanye West or Nick Fuentes. So after the fact he learned about, like, what went down, he feels like he got played. And Alex Jones goes on Steven Crowder's show to talk about it, and this happens.
I didn't know that Nick Fuentes was really a Nazi lover.
Yeah,
I'd had him on over the years 3 or 4 times whenever he was being debanked or censored, and he would be like, no, I'm not a Nazi. I just care about white people's rights. So I think this whole thing was a real coming out. And I'll be honest with you, especially with the Fuentes thing, and I'll still have Fuentes on. I believe in the First Amendment. But there's a real creepy factor with this Hitler stuff. And then I also noticed that Richard Spencer came out and said, yay, blew Jones away, because Jones is really controlled by the liberal narrative that Hitler's bad. But those of us that know the dark, powerful beauty of Hitler and of the darkness and of the strength, and it's like some homoerotic, thing over Hitler, that is kind of what's going on. There's this Hitler fetish. And no, I'm not into dudes in fancy, peacock military uniforms that by the way, got 22 million Germans killed. So the biggest killer of Germans in history, if you like Germanic people, and I'm basically half German, have a lot of German roots, is Hitler. Hitler was a disaster. Hitler was an occultist. Hitler was a pedophile. Hitler was horrible. Screw Hitler. Burn in hell Hitler. And the left uses Hitler to push their communist agenda that is basically just as bad and authoritarian, to call all of us Hitler. And so people are so sick of being called Hitler, they go, hey, if Hitler's so powerful, let's just say we're with Hitler. And that's what these people are doing. And I felt like I was sucked in to a giant publicity stunt. Now I'm not mad at either person. I understand that they probably even believe what they're doing, but no, I saw a whole bunch of programs like the Young Turds and all of them say, Jones is just mad they let the secret out. Jones likes Hitler. No, I hate authoritarians. I hate communists. I hate Xi Jinping. I hate Hitler. I hate Mao Zedong. I hate Joseph Stalin. I hate Fidel Castro. I hate Hugo Chavez.
Yeah.
I love George Washington. I love Thomas Jefferson. I love American strength and freedom and power and Christianity and open societies and capitalism and free speech. And I want it back now. So burn in hell, Hitler and Stalin and Mao. Burn in hell. This is what I told Piers Morgan. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. And if you try to take our guns, 1776 will commence again.
Look, the first time I watched that, I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting there with Crystal, and me and her look at each other, and we're like, God damn, he's such a good broadcaster. Like, obviously on Ideology, out to lunch, wacky, kooky, yada yada. You guys know the gist of it. But in terms of like how he delivers it, it's crazy. He's on another level, dog. He's on another level. And it looks like, I mean, tell me if you guys agree with this, but there are times, like, you could tell when Alex is like super drunk or on cocaine or something, just fucked up on some sort of a substance, and it comes through because his delivery's like not nearly as good and he seems more unhinged. It looks like in this, like, he's not drinking, and it's almost like he's forcing the rant a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He seems a little more lucid than he has previously. So I don't know if he quit drinking or if he quit doing any sort of drugs or if he's just taking less of a substance, but he seems more with it than he has previously, because in previous rants, he seems like his face is red. He's genuinely flying off the handle. Here, it seems like he's almost like forcing the rant a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, there's a lot to go through there. He goes, I thought Nick Fuentes, he says, I'm not a Nazi. I just care about white people's rights. So Alex is surprised that a guy who would say that is a Nazi. Alex, you clown of all clowns, how do you not know about dog whistles? And by the way, the whole I believe in whites' rights thing is barely a dog whistle. It's barely a dog whistle. Let me ask you a question. So yeah, Kanye West wore a White Lives Matter shirt. Literally every other person who has ever worn a White Lives Matter shirt, if they're being honest with you, they would tell you like, yes, I'm a fascist and I'm a Nazi and I'm very, very far right. There is no like enlightened centrist who decides like, I'm a liberal, but I wore this White Lives Matter shirt to make an ironic contrarian point or some shit. That doesn't happen, Alex. So it's dog whistle politics 101. And this is the thing, like, so people would go after the left for casually, willy-nilly throwing around like, oh, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're an anti-Semite, or whatever the fuck. And sometimes, yeah, I get that sometimes maybe the left overreaches with their criticisms. But the right does the opposite. So you can have a clear-cut example of like, that motherfucker's a Nazi. And they're like, I don't see it. I don't see the Nazi. I don't know what you're talking about. All I see is a guy who's ironically doing a Heil Hitler sign. All I see is a guy wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. All I see is a guy posting like hidden swastikas. It's like, no, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, as Freud said. Sometimes if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a fucking duck. And it's not like, tee-hee-hee, LOL, I was joking. I'm just a shit poster on 8chan or 4chan. No, look, Nick Fuentes has come out and said this. He said there's times when he's been more strategic and less strategic. And in the more strategic times, he says, yeah, hide behind irony, sarcasm, jokes, like try to cover what you really believe, but like play footsie with it. And then there are other times where he just, drops it and he's much more honest. And he's like, yeah, I believe in dictatorship. I believe in a Catholic theocracy. I'm a white nationalist, et cetera, et cetera. So, man, then I'm not going to lie. I did enjoy the part where Alex says these guys have like a homoerotic fetish for Hitler. Because you know what? Kind of true. It does seem a little bit homoerotic. It does. And especially a guy like Richard Spencer. You know what I'm saying? So I like that, but I also can't help but make the point that, like, in their mind, they go, like, if I disagree with you and you have what I think is a bad ideology, they immediately think, like, you must be gay, right? Like, it's not like Nazi and fascist is bad enough on its own. It's just like, you're also homosexual, which is condemnable. So that's where his mind goes right to. And then the very interesting point there when he says he got, Hitler got 22 million Germans killed. So if you care about Germans, then this guy was a disaster. And it's like, why did you phrase it that way? Like, oh, I'm so concerned about the Germans that got killed. Because you could have easily said he got, 6 million, 10 million, whatever it was, Jews killed. But it's almost like he knows if I stress like he killed this many Jews or this many Roma or whatever, or this many disabled people or gay people or communists, because Hitler, of course, killed the communists as well. If he brings up any of those groups, the audience would be like, maybe that maybe that wasn't the worst thing in the world. But he brings up Germans because he knows, well, that'll make the audience go, oh, don't kill the good, fine German folks, right? But if you bring up the minority groups that they're not in love with, then maybe they wouldn't have as visceral a reaction. And he says Hitler was an occultist and a pedophile. He says this part is sort of classic stuff from Alex Jones and the far right in general, that it's the left that pushes their communist agenda, and that pushes people into Hitler's arms. That was one of the points that he made in there. And no, like, look, I'm sick of this. Like, people have agency. People have agency. Like, own the shit that you do and that you believe. I hate this thing of like, the left was mean to me, and so now I'm a goose-stepping Nazi. It's like, no, okay, even if everybody on the left was the biggest asshole in the world to me, I would still be on the left. Why? Because my politics is not petty and spite-driven and reactionary. My politics is like, let me see a list of the issues, I'll tell you where I fall on those issues, and then you could put an accurate label on me as a result of it. That's the way adults do politics. This like childish thing of like, the group was mean to me, so I went to the other group because they were being poopy faces. So notice, it always goes back to the left's fault. It's always the left's fault. The left did this, and then I reacted like this. Okay, you could have just not reacted like that. You could have just not become a Nazi. Maybe you became a Nazi because you're a Nazi. Maybe you actually, went down that rabbit hole, and you have agency the entire time that you went down that rabbit hole. And then that was classic Alex at the end. 1776 will commence again. He's done that one before. He did it on Piers Morgan's show back in the day. But if you notice, what he does is he puts all the authoritarians together, all the dictators together, and this is his way of being like, yeah, I don't like Hitler and Nazism, but I also don't like the communist dictators. So hey, audience, which is very right wing, they're just as big of a problem, if not a bigger problem too. It's a way to do that. And then when he brings up like, well, I love George Washington, I love Thomas Jefferson, and I don't know if you caught it there, he slips in, and I love capitalism. Oh, you do? Well, then I guess we're going to have to axe that whole portion where you said you hate authoritarianism. Because capitalism is, by its very nature, authoritarian. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. How does a corporation work? How does a company work? There's one person at the top, and they're the dictator. They're the tyrant. They get to call the shots, and if you're underneath them, you have to listen to them. So it's so funny because in this country, we sing the virtues of political democracy, but nobody ever, moves that into the economic sphere as well. It's like we believe in political democracy, but, economic tyranny. That's what we believe in. And there's a massive contradiction there. And again, a guy like Alex Jones, who harps against authoritarians all day long, doesn't recognize the biggest authoritarian impacting most people's lives on a day-to-day basis, which is your fucking asshole boss who's telling you what to do in no uncertain terms. So I find it so hollow. Like, I'm anti-authoritarian, unless it's the kind of authoritarianism that I'm used to with a company, with a boss, with a rigid hierarchy in the workplace. Most of people's, time in a day, most of your, the hours where you're awake, you're taking orders from some schmuck. And you have to do it because you have to pay the fucking bills. Is that fair? Is that just? Is that a good system? No, that's authoritarian. By the way, the other thing is, I love America, I love capitalism. There's so many deeply authoritarian aspects of this country. The drug war is massively authoritarian. We have more people in prison than any other country on earth. And we lock people up and throw away the key because they were smoking weed or selling weed, and that's authoritarian. There are very authoritarian aspects. Our torture program, deeply authoritarian. NSA spying, deeply authoritarian. And it's also funny you bring up all these, these mass killers throughout history who are so bad, but then also, I love the founding fathers. Well, hate to break it to you, Alex. There's many of the founding fathers owned slaves, right? So that's authoritarian. That's as authoritarian as it gets. I'm going to treat a human being like they are property. Deeply, deeply authoritarian. Never mind the Native American genocide, etc. But anyway, classic Alex Jones. Look, I will say this. I do love this like sort of civil war on the far right now. The downside is it makes people like Alex Jones and Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro look more reasonable than they are. That's the downside. But the upside of it is there's now like an open war between the genuine, legit white nationalist, white supremacist, Nazi elements and just the standard far-right types. You know what I'm saying? And I certainly, for all of their fucking flaws, and there's a million of them, and I could talk all day about how I disagree with all these guys, the Alex Jones, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, they are not full Kanye West. They're just not. Now, there are some people, by the way, who are just mad that Kanye is like giving up the game. Like, I was with you until you crossed the line that none of us are allowed to cross about saying you love Hitler and Nazis. Some of them are just like, you're giving the game away, and I don't like that. I don't think that's Alex. I think the main thing that drives his politics, again, is hardcore conspiracy thinking. But the actual label that would apply best to him is that he's sort of like a libertarian right-winger. And so there is a categorical difference between that and a Nazi, a straight-up Nazi, even though I could argue with, both of them until I'm blue in the face. But anyway, there you have it. Alex Jones, classic Alex Jones rant. Again, the best part is going after saying there's a weird homoerotic Hitler fetish that they seem to have. It's really gross.
Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.